So, disruption versus transformation. It sounds like one of those, semantics games, right?
Oh, absolutely. Just corporate wordplay.
Yeah, like consultants in fancy suits charging by the hour to stand in front of a whiteboard and tell you that change is good.
Mm-hmm.
But I was reading through this massive stack of research you sent over for today's deep dive, and I actually had a bit of a moment because what if the difference between those two words, disruption and transformation, is actually the difference between a global economic crisis
Mm-hmm.
and, I don't know, the biggest upgrade in human capability we've ever seen?
It really is the fundamental question of the moment, isn't it? And you're right, people use those words interchangeably all the time, but they feel very different in practice. I mean, disruption is violent. It breaks things. It
Yeah.
shatters local economies. It's essentially an earthquake.
Right, it implies casualties.
Exactly. Whereas transformation, that implies something smooth, something pleasing, like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly.
And that leads us right into the big, provocative question we are tackling today. Because if you look around, the headlines are just screaming disruption. They are screaming apocalypse.
The sky is falling.
Yeah, exactly. But what if the predicted white-collar bloodbath, and by the way, that is a direct quote from the media, I'm not just being dramatic, what if that bloodbath is actually the starting gun for a global employment renaissance?
It's a heavy question. Are we looking at a catastrophic job collapse or a massive decentralized upgrade of human capability?
It's a choice between two very, very different futures. And I think we have to be honest with everyone listening. If you open Twitter right now or read the op-eds, the prevailing narrative is definitely leaning toward fear.
Oh, heavily toward fear. The scaremongers are out in full force. And look, we aren't talking about tinfoil hat guys in basements posting on obscure forums. We are talking about heavy hitters.
The titans of the industry.
Right. People like Dario Amodei from Anthropic.
Right.
Or Ray Dalio. These are people who literally move markets when they clear their throats.
When Ray Dalio speaks, Wall Street pauses to take notes. And they are not holding back on the doom and gloom.
No, they are not. They are predicting massive inequality. Dalio actually used this phrase in the source material that honestly sent a chill down my spine. He warned of a useless class.
A useless class. I mean, just let that sit for a second. That is a chilling phrase.
It is. And then you have Amadei talking about up to 50% job loss for entry-level roles. And not in some distant sci-fi future, within just 5 years.
5 years. That's not someday. That is, my current car lease isn't even up yet.
Right, those are terrifying numbers. If you just take them at face value without looking at any of the underlying nuance, it looks like the end of the middle class as we know it. It implies a world where millions of humans simply have no economic function left whatsoever.
And here's where it gets really interesting and why I was so excited to get into the deep dive. We're going to flip that script today. Because when you actually look at the hard data from 2024, the numbers tell a completely different story.
Radically different story.
AI created nearly 10 times more jobs than it displaced. 10 times. We're talking about roughly 119,900 jobs created versus 12,700 displaced.
It is an incredibly stark contrast to the doom predictions. It strongly suggests that the economic models the scaremongers are relying on might be missing a massive variable.
Exactly. So our thesis for this deep dive is pretty simple, but it is bold. The current doom-mongering suffers from a profound failure of imagination regarding human adaptability.
We are so much better at adapting than they give us credit for.
Welcome to the deep dive. I'm Satosha.
And I'm Satoshi.
We really are. And we are going to explore exactly why that is today. A lot of it has to do with infrastructure, but not in the way you usually think about, physical roads and bridges. We are going to look at how AI reached 100 million users in record time. 2 months.
Which is just statistically insane.
It is. And it wasn't because we laid new fiber optic cables across the ocean. It's because AI rode the pre-existing highways of smartphones and cloud networks.
And we'll get into this concept of shadow AI, which sounds like something out of a spy movie, but is actually fascinating.
Yeah, employees basically going rogue to save their own jobs, becoming resilient on their own, completely bypassing corporate permission to self-train. It's all about removing the friction of syntax.
Which is a huge paradigm shift.
It is. Now, I want to get into all of that because I feel like I might be guilty of some shadow AI myself. But before we get into the weeds, we have a little bit of housekeeping. And this is actually quite meta, considering what we're talking about today.
It really is. We are literally living the case study right now.
We are. So we have a very specific goal. We need to hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. Why? not just for vanity metrics, but
Okay.
because hitting that milestone unlocks funding for the Mosaic AI video editor.
Essentially, we are trying to use AI tools to secure our own jobs as creators in a changing landscape. We want to evolve this show from pure audio to audio with companion video.
Exactly. We want to practice what we preach here. We want to prove that we can adapt.
Hit that subscribe button. It directly helps us prove that humans can adapt and use these tools to make something even cooler.
Well said. Okay, let's get into the main deep dive. Just a quick production note and disclaimer for everyone listening. This is a research-based experience. We don't just sit here and wing it.
No, absolutely not.
A comprehensive research paper actually generates this audio, not the other way around. The purpose of this audio is to make that dense research easy to grasp. And you can find that paper linked in the description.
We believe in complete transparency. You can check out all our research at the Deep Dive website. It is open source and entirely free of cookies or trackers to ensure you have the most responsive and private reading experience possible.
Also, if our sources happen to contain any politically charged content, left-wing, right-wing, whatever, we never take sides. We just impartially report on the content provided. We aren't endorsing the viewpoints. We're just conveying the ideas from the source material.
Just the facts and the analysis.
Exactly. So let's dive in. Let's start with the history, the great compression and the velocity of diffusion. That sounds like the title of a sci-fi novel, but the research uses it to describe how fast things spread.
It is history, and it's absolutely crucial for context here, because to understand why people are so freaked out right now and why they might actually be wrong, we have to look at how technology usually spreads through society. We have to go all the way back to the telephone.
Okay, the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell, Watson, come here, all that.
Let's look at the timeline. It took approximately 75 years for the telephone to reach 100 million users globally.
75 years. I mean, that is a lifetime. That is 3 generations of people waiting for a phone.
It is. But I want you to really picture why. Why did it take so long?
Well, I assume it was just incredibly expensive to make the phone.
It was expensive, sure, but think about the physical reality of the infrastructure. To get a working telephone into your house in, say, 1920, someone had to physically dig a trench down your street.
Oh, right.
They had to cut down a tree in a forest, turn it into a pole, soak it in creosote, and physically plant it in the dirt. Then they had to mine copper out of the earth, smelt it, draw it into wire, and physically string that wire from pole to pole all the way across the continent.
When you put it that way, it just sounds exhausting. It was a massive manual construction project.
Exactly. It was a highly capital-intensive infrastructure project. You couldn't just download a telephone line over the air. Every single new user represented a physical alteration of the natural landscape.
It's so easy to forget that now.
Yeah.
You just pick up a glass rectangle and talk to someone in Japan. But back then, the tech was literally tethered to the mud.
Precisely. Then you move forward in history to electricity. That took about 36 years to reach saturation in U.S. households. Again, you had to physically build the grid. You had to construct the dams, the coal plants, the substations.
And run wires into every single house.
Right. And then, crucially, people had to actually buy the appliances. You don't need electricity if you don't own a light bulb or a toaster.
So there was a classic chicken and egg problem there.
Very much so. Then we get to the digital age and things finally start speeding up. The personal computer took about 16 years to hit that 100 million user mark.
Still, 16 years. That is a long time in tech years.
It is, because the physical bottlenecks were still there. You had to go to a store and buy the hardware. You had to find physical space on your desk for a giant beige box. And you had to learn how to use it, which was not intuitive back then. Even the mobile phone took about 12 years.
And then you get to ChatGPT.
2 months.
2 months. I mean, let's just pause on that for our listeners. From 75 years for the phone to 16 years for the PC to 2 months for AI. That is not just faster. That is a completely different species of speed.
This is the anomaly that we really need to unpack today. Why did it happen so fast? It's not just because AI is a cool novelty. It's because AI didn't require a new physical hardware platform to be built.
This is that pre-existing highway concept mentioned in the note.
Precisely. Think about it. When the PC came out, you had to buy the PC. When the mobile phone came out, you had to buy the phone and wait for the telecoms to build the cellular towers. But AI, it utilized the billions of devices already in circulation.
So if I had a smartphone in my pocket, I was already ready.
If you had a smartphone or a cloud-connected laptop, you were already AI ready. The infrastructure was already laid. The digital trenches were already dug by the internet and mobile revolutions over the last 20 years. AI just drove onto the road that was already there.
It's like someone invented a brand new type of flying car, but instead of needing new roads, it could just fly right over the traffic on the asphalt we already poured.
That's a great analogy. It was a ghost in the machine. It didn't need to manifest physically. It just needed to transmit digitally over our existing networks.
Okay, so that explains the sheer velocity. But that speed is also exactly what scares people, right? Because usually, society has time to adapt to a new paradigm.
Exactly. Which brings us to a really important economic concept from the sources, the disruption lag.
Let's unpack that disruption lag.
Usually there is a lag period. A new technology comes in, let's say the automated loom during the Industrial Revolution. It destroys the old jobs, the hand weavers are out of work, and it takes years, maybe a full generation for people to learn the new technology to get the new jobs operating machines.
That gap between the old job ending and the new job starting, that's where the pain is.
Yes, that's the valley of death for a worker. That is where the unemployment and the societal unrest happens.
But the research argues this time is different.
The argument here is that because AI is diffusing so fast, and because it is being integrated directly into the software we already use every single day, like Microsoft 365 or WhatsApp or Google Docs, the learning happens in situ.
In situ. So right there in the moment, on the job.
Yes, you aren't taking 2 years off to go to night school to learn AI. You are just opening Microsoft Word to rate a quarterly report, and Copilot is just sitting there nudging you. Hey, want me to rewrite this paragraph? Want me to summarize this email chain? You learn by doing. The disruption lag is being drastically shortened by the technology itself.
So the tool actually teaches you how to use the tool.
Exactly. It guides you.
Okay, but hold on. Just because the infrastructure is there and the tool is there doesn't mean it's easy for everyone. I mean, I have a professional grade stove in my house. It doesn't make me a Michelin star chef. MS-DOS was on computers we already had in the 90s, but I couldn't use it to save my life. I vividly remember staring at that blinking cursor on a black screen. It was mocking me.
The blinking cursor of doom. We've all been there.
C:\\. If you didn't know what to type next, you were dead in the water. So why is this new AI interface any different?
This leads us to the next major segment of the research, the end of arcane technology, or what they call the end of the friction of syntax.
The friction of syntax. I really like that phrase.
Let's trace the evolution of interfaces. Human-computer interaction, or HCI. We started with the CLI, the command line interface. That is your MS-DOS.
The dark ages of computing.
Incredibly high barrier to entry. You had to memorize rigid syntax. If you typed a command slightly wrong, a misplaced space, a missing semicolon, nothing happened. Or worse, you accidentally deleted your entire hard drive.
Bad command or file name. I still see that error message in my nightmares.
Because it required arcane knowledge. It was gate-kept by design. If you didn't know the specific code, you couldn't use the machine. You were locked out of the capability.
Then we got the GUI, the graphical user interface. Windows, the mouse, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates basically saving the average person from the command line.
Right. This drastically reduced the memory load on the user. You didn't have to memorize a dictionary of commands anymore, but you still had to learn workflows.
Oh yeah, finding the hidden menus. Like where did they hide the pivot table feature in this specific year's version of Excel?
Yeah.
You had to memorize the map of the software.
Exactly. It was significantly better, but it still required formal training. You still had to bend your brain to think like the computer. Now we have NLI, Natural Language Interface. This is the current breakthrough. It is intent-based.
Meaning, I just say what I want to happen.
Yes. You don't need to know where the chart menu lives in Excel anymore. You don't need to know the Python code to draw a scatter plot. You simply tell the AI, visualize this data as a trend line showing year-over-year growth.
And this is what the sources call the prompt collapse.
The prompt collapse. It's a brilliant term. The technical barrier, the need to master the underlying software logic, has collapsed. It is entirely replaced by the ability to communicate a clear goal in plain English, or whatever language you speak.
This is huge for democratization.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the junior professional just entering the workforce.
It allows them to bypass the bottom rungs of technical drudgery. Amadei and Dahlia worry that the corporate ladder is being destroyed. But really, AI isn't destroying the ladder, it's providing a lift.
It's an elevator to the middle floors.
In a way, yes. A junior employee can now produce work that used to require 3 or 4 years of tool-specific mastery. They can build the complex chart, write the basic code snippet, or draft the standard legal brief without knowing the arcane commands that used to gatekeep those tasks.
Okay, now the sources have a bit of math here to explain the economic impact of this. And you know the rule on this show. If there is math, there better be a really good metaphor attached to it, or our listeners are going to check out.
Fair enough. I accept the challenge.
They bring up the production function, Q equals A times F of L, K, AI. Honestly, it looks like high school homework. Help me out here.
Okay, let's banish the algebra completely. Let's imagine a bakery.
I love a bakery. Fresh sourdough. I'm listening.
Good. So in the old economic model, to produce more bread, that's Q for output, you needed two primary things. You needed labor, which is L, that's your Daker, and you needed capital, which is K, that's the giant expensive industrial oven.
Okay, baker and oven, labor and capital. Got it.
Now, historically, if you wanted to scale up and produce 1,000 loaves a day instead of 100, you couldn't just hire more bakers. 10 bakers staring at a tiny oven won't get you anywhere. You needed a bigger oven. You needed capital.
Right. I can't bake 1,000 loaves in my kitchen toaster oven. I need the $50,000 commercial machine.
Exactly. So the labor was heavily dependent on the capital. You couldn't be highly productive without the rich guy's machine. But AI changes the fundamental formula.
How so?
Think of AI as a magical yeast, or a brilliant robotic sous chef that lives in your pocket. It is an efficiency game that attaches directly to the labor.
So I don't need the bigger oven anymore.
You might still need an oven, but suddenly you, the single baker, can produce those 1,000 loaves using the exact same equipment because the AI is perfectly managing the temperature, flawlessly mixing the dough ratios, and optimizing the baking schedule so there is zero downtime. It decouples human productivity from expensive machinery.
So the capital requirement goes down, or at least the power of the labor goes up independently of it.
Exactly. If you have a smartphone, you have the tool. A single person can do the work of a team of 3, that's the force multiplier effect, without needing 3 people's worth of expensive equipment or software licenses.
That is a massive shift in economic power. It puts the leverage and the productivity back into the hands of the individual worker.
It does. But then the ultimate question is, are the workers actually ready to use that leverage?
And this brings us beautifully to the gateway theory, because if you look back at 2023, what were we actually doing with this incredible, world-changing, magical yeast technology? We were making memes.
We really were.
I will admit, fully on the public reckoning right now, I spent hours making images of cats. Cats in space. Cats as medieval knights. Hamsters fighting dragons in a cyberpunk city.
We all did. It was a global phenomenon.
And at the time, the serious business people were saying, look at this toy. It's frivolous. It's a joke. It's a distraction.
The toy's criticism, people entirely dismissed it. But the source material argues that this period of play was actually the most successful decentralized instructional design in human history.
We were trading ourselves and we didn't even realize it.
We were. Think about what you were actually doing with those cats. You typed cat, the AI gave you a cat, then you typed cat in space, the image changed. Then you got specific cat in space, photorealistic, cinematic lighting, 4K resolution, shot on 35mm lens.
I was learning which specific words changed the picture to match what was in my head.
Exactly. Academics call that semantic syntactic mapping. You were learning that specific adjectives and structural commands result in specific computational outputs. You were teaching yourself prompt engineering.
And what about the poetry? Because I made ChatGPT write incredibly specific limericks about my friend's bad habits.
That taught structure, tone, and rule enforcement. If you asked for a haiku and the AI gave you 4 lines, you learned to correct it. You'd say, no, make it 5 syllables. You were exploring the AI's ability to handle structured constraints and logic. This play phase drastically lowered the psychological barrier to entry.
So while the corporate executives were having endless meetings worrying about top-down implementation plans, the employees were already becoming power users on their lunch breaks.
Precisely. And the sources actually codify this into a framework called the 4 Ps of AI literacy. Academic institutions are using this framework right now to understand how we learn this stuff.
Okay, run us through the 4 Ps.
First is products, knowing what AI can actually make. Oh, it can generate text, it can write Python code, it can render images. You learn that baseline capability by playing with it. Second is processes, the iterative feedback loop. You prompt, the AI fails or gives a weird output, you refine the prompt, you try again. That loop is the core skill of the new economy.
That's the poking it with a stick phase.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Exactly. Third is policies, the ethics and the guardrails. Is this output actually true? Did I cite it? Wait, is this image a deepfake? We learn to be skeptical of the machine through
Yeah,
experience.
the hallucinations taught us not to trust it blindly.
Right. And the fourth P is public connections, understanding how this links to the broader economy and society.
So all that time I spent making weird, hyper-specific images of hamsters, I wasn't just wasting company time. I was building the process skill. I was becoming an inner prompt engineer.
You were. The workforce isn't this helpless group of bewildered victims waiting to be replaced by a server farm. They are highly adaptable agents, pre-trained by their own curiosity.
Okay, so we have the pre-existing infrastructure. We have the natural language interface removing the friction. We have the decentralized training via cat memes. But now, we have to look at the monster under the bed, the white-collar bloodbath.
We can't avoid the hard data.
Because even if I know how to use the tool perfectly, if the tool does my job 100 times faster, why does my boss need me? Why keep me on payroll? Let's go back to Ray Dalio. He talks about a useless class.
It's an incredibly harsh term.
It's terrifying. It implies a large group of people who are not just temporarily unemployed, but permanently unemployable. Because the machine does everything they can do, but better and cheaper. And Amodei saying 50% job loss for entry level. I mean, expert, be real with me here. Are we just whistling past the graveyard? Is this optimism we're talking about, just coping?
It is a very fair question to ask. These are serious predictions from very serious, highly capitalized people. But the source material, and frankly, the entire history of economics, argues that they are falling for a very specific, very old logical trap. It's called the lump of labor fallacy.
The lump of labor. It sounds like a bad medical diagnosis. I'm sorry, you have a severe lump of labor.
It's an economic fallacy. It is the assumption that there is a fixed, finite amount of work to be done in the world, a fixed lump. So the logic goes, if a machine does half of that work, there is exactly half as much work left for humans.
That feels intuitively true, though, doesn't it? If my department has 10 reports to write this week, and the AI writes 9 of them in 10 seconds, I only have 1 report left to write. I'm redundant.
In a strict vacuum, yes, that makes sense. But the global economy isn't a vacuum. History shows us time and time again that when you drastically lower the cost and time of doing something, demand for it goes up proportionally. Or you free up capital to create entirely new types of value that didn't exist before.
Give me a concrete example of this happening right now.
Look at the software paradox. This is playing out as we speak. When large language models first dropped, everyone thought AI coding tools like GitHub Copilot would absolutely decimate software developer jobs. The logic was simple. If AI can write the code, why hire an expensive junior coder?
Right. It seems completely obvious. They should be the first to go.
But look at the actual data. The Bureau of Labor Statistics currently projects a 17.9% increase in employment for software developers through 2033.
Wait, a nearly 18% increase? That's way faster than average job growth.
It is. Why? Because when developer productivity goes up, thanks to AI, the actual cost of solving a problem with custom software goes down. Suddenly, thousands of medium-sized companies that couldn't afford a custom app or bespoke internal software now can afford it.
Ah. So we don't code less, we actually code more.
Exactly. We build more products. We tackle incredibly complex problems we used to ignore because they were simply too expensive and time-consuming to fix. The demand for software is functionally infinite if the price drops.
The lump of labor gets bigger.
The lump absolutely explodes. It multiplies.
Okay, that makes sense for coders because there's endless software to build. But what about the middle managers? The business analysts, the marketing coordinators? The NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Research, did a massive study on this in 2026. The Adaptive Capacity Index.
This study is fascinating because it completely flips the victim narrative on its head.
Usually we hear that the blue-collar workers are safer now because robots can't easily fix complex plumbing or wire a house yet. But the white-collar workers, the knowledge workers, are doomed.
Right. The widespread assumption has been that the people most exposed to AI, the analysts, the copywriters, the mid-level managers, are the most likely to end up in Dalio's useless class.
But the NBER study says something else.
It says they're actually the best prepared segment of the population to pivot.
Why? What makes a middle manager inherently resilient?
Think about the demographic that holds those high exposure jobs. They generally have higher education, mostly college degree holders. They have highly transferable soft skills like complex problem solving, stakeholder management, and critical analysis. And crucially, they have financial buffers.
Right. They have savings accounts. They might have stock options. They can afford to take a month on the weekends to learn a new AI workflow. They aren't living paycheck to paycheck in the exact same precarious way a gig worker might be.
Exactly. The study found that a staggering 70% of the high exposure group are classified as highly resilient. They aren't the useless class at all. They are the absolute prime candidates for upgrading. They are the ones who will use the AI to become super workers.
So if they aren't losing their jobs, what are they actually doing? Because the jobs will change. I might not be manually writing the weekly summary report anymore, but I'm doing something. The source material maps this out in 3 distinct layers of the new economy.
Yes, let's look at layer one, the foundation, the infrastructure layer.
Now, this is where we get back to physical reality. People talk about the cloud like it's magic, but they forget the cloud is actually on the ground.
It is very much on the ground. It is concrete, steel, and massive amounts of copper wire. Data centers. We are seeing an unprecedented boom in physical infrastructure.
Give me the scale of this boom.
Each large-scale modern data center requires roughly 1,500 on-site workers just to run and maintain it. Security, cooling engineers, technicians, but building them. In 2024 alone, the surge in AI infrastructure fueled over 110,000 new construction jobs.
That is a lot of hard hats and steel-toe boots.
It is. And then there's the energy sector. AI is incredibly hungry.
I've heard this. It eats electricity for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Massive continuous energy needs. The sources project a need for 75 to 100 gigawatts of new power generation capacity by 2030 just to feed the data centers.
100 gigawatts. That's what, like 80 nuclear power plants?
Right.
Or thousands of square miles of solar farms?
It's a staggering figure. That means an explosion of jobs in public utilities, renewables, grid modernization, electrical engineering. This is a massive boom for blue-collar and advanced engineering roles. If you know how to fix a high-voltage turbine, you are golden for the next 20 years.
Okay, so that's the physical foundation layer. Layer 2 is the application layer. These are the specialized digital roles.
Here we are seeing exploding demand for what they call AI fluency. There's been a 7x growth in job postings, specifically asking for AI skills in just the last 2 years.
And entirely new job titles that didn't exist 3 years ago. The data says AI engineer roles are up 143.2%. Prompt engineer is up 135.8%. AI content creator up 134%.
And it's not just the technical roles. We are seeing emerging demand for roles we didn't really think about initially, like AI ethics specialists, data provenance auditors, and AI literacy trainers. Large companies desperately need humans to teach their legacy staff how to use this stuff safely and legally.
So the traditional teacher or corporate trainer role evolves into an AI Sherpa.
Yes, exactly. But layer three is arguably the most important, and it's my favorite. This is the multiplier layer, the human touch.
Now, I have to push back a little here. This sounds a bit soft. The human touch. Is this just something we tell ourselves to feel better about the machines being smarter than us?
No, it is based on hard, cold economics. It is pure supply and demand. The thesis is this. As intelligence becomes a cheap commodity, as it becomes basically free to get a perfectly smart synthesized answer, how human traits become the new gold.
Because scarcity creates value.
Exactly. If raw computational smarts are cheap and abundant everywhere, what becomes rare and expensive?
Empathy. Real human connection.
Precisely. Let's look at healthcare, which is a massive sector. AI is already handling the diagnosis phase. It crunches the MRI data and spots the tumor better and faster than a tired human radiologist. It perfectly predicts the disease progression based on millions of case studies. But who actually tells the patient? Who sits in the room, looks them in the eye, and holds their hand?
The doctor or the nurse practitioner.
Exactly. The demand for that deep human connection actually goes up because the cost and time of the technical diagnostic side goes down. You want a trained human to explain your treatment options with empathy, not a sterile chatbot interface.
And you see the exact same dynamic in education.
AI is the ultimate tutor. It can teach you advanced calculus at 3 in the morning. It never gets frustrated. It has infinite patience. It adapts to your learning style. But the human is the mentor. The human is the motivator, the one who understands your background, who guides your path, who tells you that you can actually succeed. The reference point of an inspiring human teacher remains absolutely essential.
Even the arts. The source material specifically mentions physical arts like ceramics and sculpture.
Right. Physical arts. Things that cannot be instantly generated on a screen. The human touch in physical, tangible objects is increasing in value specifically because it is irreplaceable in a digital, AI-saturated world. You simply cannot prompt a handmade, slightly imperfect clay vase into physical existence.
So we might actually see a massive return to the tangible, like a maker movement on steroids, because people are craving things made by human hands.
I strongly believe so.
Now let's zoom out for a minute. We've talked about the tech, the new jobs, the three layers of the economy, but who is actually winning this race globally? Because it's not an even playing field.
The geography of adaptation is fascinating. We typically always look at the US and Europe, Silicon Valley, London, Paris. But the real leaders in rapid adoption, actual on-the-ground usage, are places like Singapore and the UAE.
The UAE strategy specifically caught my eye in the research. They call it sovereign AI.
They are not messing around at all.
What does that actually mean in practice, sovereign AI?
It means they treat artificial intelligence infrastructure the exact same way they treat a critical national resource, like oil or fresh water. They have citizen adoption rates rapidly approaching 60%. And get this, they are actively providing free ChatGPT Plus subscriptions to their citizens.
Wait, free? Like the government just pays the $20 a month for everyone?
Yes, free, unfettered access to the absolute best frontier models.
That is wild. I mean, in the US, we are spending years arguing in court about copyright infringement and data scraping. They are just handing out the keys to the Ferrari to everyone.
And they are starting formal AI education in schools at age 4.
Age 4. My nephew is 4. He is currently eating paste and fighting the dog for toys. He's barely mastered basic shapes. They are teaching him prompt engineering.
Well, maybe not complex Python coding, but they are absolutely teaching them to interact with the machines as native interfaces. It is a highly strategic, long-term move. They want their entire future population to be completely AI native.
They are basically building a post-labor, highly augmented society before we even figure out the basic regulations.
And it is paying off for them economically. The data shows 89% of financial institutions there are already using AI for advanced fraud detection. 58% of businesses attribute direct revenue growth to AI initiatives. They don't see it as a threat, they see it as a critical national asset.
That is a very, very different mindset from the shadow AI we talked about earlier, where American employees are sneaking it in the back door because the IT department banned it.
It is a totally different approach. But even shadow AI is a powerful form of economic resilience.
Give us the stat on that again, because I think it's telling.
There is a 73% versus 27% split between work use and personal use. But the key takeaway is that people are using it heavily at work, very often without explicit corporate permission.
It's the bring your own device era all over again, but this time it's bring your own intelligence.
Exactly. It proves that human workers are active agents in their own survival. They aren't just sitting passively waiting for the boss to say, here is a corporate-approved AI tool. They are proactively finding the tools to do their jobs faster and better so they don't get fired. That is the definition of resilience. That is bottom-up, organic adoption.
So, bringing this all home, we started this deep dive with the white-collar bloodbath. We started with a genuine fear that a useless class was inevitable.
And we are ending with a very, very different picture of the future.
The synthesis here, the big takeaway from all this research is that Amadei and Dalio, as brilliant and successful as they are suffering from a profound failure of imagination.
They are imagining a static world where humans just stop, where we just stand still, hold our breath, and let the technological wave crash over us and wash us away. But human history, from laying the first telephone wire to making astronaut cat memes, shows that we never stop. We adapt.
AI is an extension of our capability, not a replacement for our humanity.
It's the prompt collapse. By removing the friction of syntax, it makes the ladder of economic opportunity accessible to almost everyone. You don't need to be part of the coding elite anymore. You don't need to memorize the command line. You just need to have a good idea and the ability to articulate it clearly.
And the broader economic outlook.
The sources project the potential to unlock nearly $2.9 trillion in new value by 2030. That is not a recession. That is not a bloodbath. That is a massive boom.
It's a renaissance. It really is.
It is, if we choose to see it that way.
Now, we need to remind all of you listening, this story is still actively unfolding. We are right in the middle of it. We are the bakers trying to figure out the new magical oven.
We really are, and we want to hear from you. Are we being too optimistic today? Are we entirely missing the dark side? We focused heavily on human adaptation, but maybe you see structural cracks that we don't.
Please share your own analysis and sources in the comments. And specifically, we are putting out a call for collaborators. If you are a finance expert, or maybe a crypto native with a really sharp eye for detail, we want you to review our upcoming content. We want to be rigorous and we need your expertise.
Absolutely. We want this show to be a true community effort. Please reach out.
So as you go about your Lent, maybe try using that AI tool you've been avoiding. Play with it. Make a ridiculous picture of a cat. Train yourself.
Embrace your inner prompt engineer.
Exactly. Keep searching. Keep the quest on.
Keep the quest on.
I'm Satosha.
And I'm Satoshi.